Hello, I'm Richard Davies. On tonight's program, fears of more heavy rain to come in flood-blattered Queensland. More than 1,000 homes and businesses have already been inundated, and the estimated cost of the disaster has soared beyond $5 billion. To make matters worse, more wet weather's forecast for tomorrow. You're watching The World.
We have the equivalent of 1 or 2 Sydney harbours of water flowing past Rockhampton on a daily basis.
The Fitzroy River hasn't reached its predicted peak, but authorities say the worst may not be over. Also tonight, one of Pakistan's best-known politicians killed by one of his own bodyguards. Sudan's president makes a rare visit to the south ahead of a referendum that could split his country in two. Australia launches another attempt to extradite an alleged Nazi war criminal. And twin tons from England have the home side on the ropes in the 5th Ashes Test.
His first 100 against Australia. He's broken through the barrier.
We begin with the devastating floods in Queensland. The people of Rockhampton have spent today watching the sky and waiting. The Fitzroy River is inching toward its peak, but still hasn't topped the 9.4 metre mark yet. But worse still, there's more rain on the way. So far in this crisis, 10 people have died and thousands have been evacuated from their homes. A total of 23 towns and cities have now been inundated or cut off altogether. The southern bush town of St George is facing its biggest flood on record, and residents there are being evacuated. From Rockhampton, here's the ABC's Kerry Ritchie.
More than 20 families have stayed on here in the worst affected part of Rockhampton. Not many residents wanted to speak to us today. They say they're fed up with the water and all the journalists. We're floating down Jane Street at the moment, and the water under the boat is about 1.5 metres deep.
And ABC News 24's Scott Bevan is in Rockhampton tonight, watching the flood levels.
Well, Richard, it's nearing the end of the day here. The light is starting to fade. However, hopes aren't fading. That's certainly starting to shine through. And the reason is because of this marker here. Now, this is the town's or the city's flood marker. It has on there the high points, or certainly for the community, the low points with floods over the past almost century. And the great fear was that this year, 2011, would go onto this board and register perhaps around where 1991 is, or fearing it might even go higher. Well, as it stands for the past 24 hours, the water of the Fitzroy River has been hovering around that 9.2 mark. It's a little below there right now. So it might be the end of the day here, and it'll be another long night in Rockhampton, and a lot of folks will be looking skyward come tomorrow, but there is a glimmer of hope that that is where it stays, and perhaps after this, it will go down.
Well, what plans do authorities have in place for the coming hours?
Well, the authorities have had in place a plan that they've enacted pretty much since the start, and they've had plenty of warning. This water was coming this way. This is an enormous catchment area, so they knew that there was a whole lot of water heading down this way. So there has been a plan in place, and a lot of what has already been enacted over the past few days will continue into the night and into the coming days and weeks. And one of the key things is security, to bring security of mind and security of property to Rockhampton residents. And the police are patrolling here 24 hours a day, patrolling what used to be streets and are currently canals just down here to the left of me. I was talking earlier to the police superintendent, and he was saying despite all of those patrols, or perhaps because of those patrols, there has been no evidence, no reports of any looting. So that is bringing a little bit of peace of mind amid all the turmoil that these residents are facing.
Now, you've been out and about in the city today and meeting people and talking to them. How are they coping with this situation? It must be a lot of pressure on people.
You're absolutely right. It is a lot of pressure, and the pressure comes from the unknown, the uncertainty as to what Mother Nature is going to keep throwing down this river course and how it will impact on their lives and livelihoods here in Rockhampton and, of course, further afield. Now, some, about 500, have had to move because of the rising water, where the level is at the moment, 9.2. About 120 of those folks have moved into an evacuation centre at a university on the outskirts of Rockhampton. And we're out there today. There are families out there with their pets trying to make the most of it, but all the while wondering what's happening to their life and to their home and their possessions and their memories and memorabilia back here in the city. So that is very tough on folks. But others are coming down here to get a sense of what the river is likely to bring their way, and the best way to get that sense is from that marker, and water up at very high levels for more than a week to come, which means some of the major roads, arterial roads, will remain cut. The airport could be closed to commercial traffic for some time yet. Even after all of that, there will be months and months of repair and recovery here, not only logistically and physically, but also psychologically for the community.
A big task ahead. Scott Bevan in Rockhampton.